The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. They built telescopes. They sent probes. They landed on their moon and planted flags on Mars. But the distances between stars were so vast that most believed they would never cross. Then everything changed. Commander Daniel Harper stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute and watched the final countdown on the main screen. His crew of 3,000 souls waited in silence. Some prayed. Some held pictures of loved ones. Some simply stared at nothing, lost in their own thoughts. 10 seconds to jump, announced Lieutenant Katie Morgan from her station. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly over the controls. Daniel took a deep breath. The Resolute was humanity's greatest achievement. It had taken 50 years to build. Entire nations had gone bankrupt funding it. Scientists had died trying to crack the secrets of faster-than-light travel. And now, finally, they were ready. 5 seconds. He thought of his wife back on Earth. She had kissed him goodbye 3 months ago, knowing she might never see him again. She had smiled through her tears and told him to find something wonderful out there. Jump. The universe folded around them. For a single heartbeat, Daniel felt like he was everywhere and nowhere at once. Colors that had no names flashed across his vision. Sounds that had no source echoed in his ears. And then, just as quickly as it began, it ended. They were somewhere else. Report, Daniel said. His voice calm, despite his racing heart. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks pulled up the sensor data on his tactical display. His face went pale. Sir, you need to see this. The main screen shifted to show what lay ahead of them. Daniel's jaw dropped. A space station floated in the darkness, but it was unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of the Resolute. Lights twinkled across its surface like a city at night. And around it, hundreds of ships moved in careful patterns. Ships of every shape and size. Ships that were clearly not made by human hands. Are those? Katie began. Aliens, Daniel finished. Those are alien ships. The bridge erupted in chaos. People shouted questions. Some laughed with joy. Others wept with relief. After all this time, after all the wondering, they finally had their answer. Humanity was not alone, but Daniel noticed something that the others did not. The alien ships were moving. All of them. And they were moving away from the Resolute. They're running, said Nathan Cole, the young helmsman. Why are they running? Before Daniel could answer, the communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in a language that no human had ever heard. It was harsh and clicking, like stones scraping together. But the ship's computer was already working on it, analyzing patterns, building a translation matrix. After a few seconds, words began to form. Unidentified vessel. You have entered Confederation space. Identify yourself immediately or face destruction. Katie looked at Daniel. Should I respond? He nodded. Open a channel. She pressed a button on her console. Channel open, sir. Daniel straightened his uniform and faced the screen. This is Commander Daniel Harper of the Earth vessel Resolute. We come in peace. We mean you no harm. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel counted the seconds in his head. 1, 2, 4. Then the screaming started. It came from everywhere at once. Every frequency. Every channel. Voices crying out in terror. Ships breaking formation and fleeing in all directions. The massive space station itself seemed to shudder as docking clamps released and vessels scattered like fish fleeing a shark. What did I say? Daniel asked, genuinely confused. Ryan shook his head slowly. I don't think it was what you said, sir. I think it was what we are. On the space station, Ambassador Zethkon of the Velori hegemony was experiencing the worst day of his long life. He had served the Confederation for 60 years. He had negotiated peace treaties between warring species. He had faced down pirates and criminals without flinching. But nothing had prepared him for this. "Confirm the readings," he ordered his science officer. "There must be a mistake." The science officer's tentacles trembled as he worked the controls. "No mistake, Ambassador. The vessel is from the third planet of a yellow star system. Coordinates match a world that was quarantined 800 years ago." Zethkin felt his foreheart skip. "Which world?" "The one they call Earth." The name hung in the air like a death sentence. Every child in the Confederation knew the stories of Earth. It was a Class 12 death world, the most dangerous type of planet in the known galaxy. A world where water fell from the sky in violent storms, where the ground shook and split open without warning, where fire could erupt from the mountains and consume everything in its path, where creatures hunted each other in endless cycles of violence that no civilized species could evolve on such a world. The Confederation had declared it impossible. They had quarantined the system and moved on, confident that nothing intelligent would ever emerge from that hellish place. They had been wrong. "How many life forms on the vessel?" Zethkin asked, his voice barely a whisper. 3,000, Ambassador. All of them appear to be the dominant species of Earth. They call themselves humans. Zethkin closed his eyes. 3,000 Deathworlders. 3,000 creatures born from a planet that should have killed them. 3,000 survivors of a world that made the worst horror. Stories seemed tame, and they had built a warship. Back on the Resolute, Daniel was trying to make sense of what was happening. The alien ships were still fleeing. Some had jumped to faster-than-light speeds and vanished entirely. Others were crowding around the station's far side, putting as much distance between themselves and the Resolute as possible. "They're afraid of us," Katie said in amazement. "They're actually afraid of us. But why?" Nathan asked. "We haven't done anything. We haven't fired a shot. We haven't made any threatening moves. Why would they be scared?" Dr. Lavra Palmer, the ship's chief medical officer, had been quietly accessing the alien databases that were now flooding their systems. Emergency broadcasts, public warnings, historical records. All of it was being transmitted on open channels, available for anyone to read. She looked up from her console with wide eyes. "I think I know why," she said quietly. "And you're not going to believe it." The crew turned to face her. "They know what Earth is," Lavra continued. "They've known about our planet for centuries. They classified it as something called a death world, a planet too dangerous for intelligent life. They thought nothing could survive there." She paused, swallowing hard. "To them, we're not explorers. We're not scientists. We're not diplomats. Then what are we?" Daniel asked. Laura met his eyes. "We're their worst nightmare come to life." The news spread across the space station like a disease. Within minutes, every species on board knew what had arrived. The Deathworlders had come. The monsters from the quarantine zone had built a ship and crossed the stars. Nothing would ever be the same. Ambassador Zethkan watched the chaos unfold from his office window. Ships were still fleeing. Merchants were abandoning their goods. Families were pushing through crowded corridors, desperate to reach any vessel that could carry them away. He had never seen such panic, not even during the Great War. His assistant, a small furry creature named Miktal, entered the room with a datapad. "Ambassador, the other delegates are demanding answers. They want to know what we're going to do." Zethkin turned from the window. "What can we do? Look at that ship." They both looked at the human vessel on the display screen. It hung in space like a sleeping predator, dark and massive and utterly terrifying. Its hull was thick and armored. Its weapons were visible even from this distance. great cannons and missile tubes that promised destruction. Everything about it spoke of violence. Everything about it said one thing: we are ready to fight. The council has called an emergency meeting, Miktal said. They want you to attend. Of course they do. Zethkin sighed and straightened his robes. They want someone to blame when this all goes wrong. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from 20 different species filled the seats, all of them talking at once. Some demanded immediate attack. Others called for surrender. A few simply wept quietly in the corners. Zethkin took his place at the central podium and raised his arms for silence. It took a long time for the noise to die down. "My fellow delegates," he began, "I understand your fear. I share it. But we must think clearly. We must not let panic drive us to foolish actions." "Foolish actions?" shouted a Kreth warrior, his scales flashing red with anger. "Those are Deathworlders out there. Do you know what that means? Do you know what they're capable of?" "I know the legends," Zethkin replied calmly. "Legends?" The Kreth laughed bitterly. "Let me tell you something about Earth. Their planet has a gravity index of 1.0. Do you understand what that means? Their muscles and bones are built to survive forces that would crush any of us. A human could break my arm with one hand. A human could throw me across this room without effort." Murmurs of horror rippled through the crowd. "Their world has an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere," the Kreth continued. "The same oxygen that we use in our welding torches. They breathe fire, Ambassador. Fire! Their planet is covered in a substance called water that can dissolve metal and poison most species. They swim in it. They drink it. They fall asleep while it pours from the sky." A Valori female fainted in her seat. Others looked sick. "And that's not even the worst part," the Kreth said, his voice dropping low. "Their world is filled with predators. Millions of species that hunt and kill. And do you know what humans did? They didn't hide. They didn't flee. They became the deadliest predators of all. They hunted everything else to extinction. They conquered their entire world with nothing but sticks and stones and their own bare hands." Zethkin felt his heart beating faster. He had read the same reports. He knew all of this. But hearing it spoken aloud, in this room full of terrified beings, made it somehow worse. "We should attack now," the Kreth declared. "Before they destroy us all." "And then what?" Zethkin asked. "You saw their ship. You saw its size, its armor, its weapons. Do you really think we could win such a fight?" The Kreth hesitated. "Let me tell you something about Deathworlders," Zethkin said quietly. "They don't just survive. They adapt. They learn. They grow stronger from every challenge. If we attack them and fail, they will come for us. All of us. And nothing in this galaxy will stop them." On the Resolute, Daniel Harper was reading the same reports that had terrified the council. His chief medical officer had translated hundreds of documents from the alien database, and each one painted the same picture. Earth was classified as a nightmare world. Humans were classified as monsters. "This is incredible," said Lavra Palmer, scrolling through more data. "They have records going back 800 years. They sent probes to our solar system. They watched us from a distance. And they decided we were too dangerous to contact. So they just left us alone?" Ryan Brooks asked. "They quarantined us," Lavra corrected. "They put warning beacons around our entire system. Any ship that got too close would receive an automatic message telling them to stay away. They were afraid we might capture their technology and use it against them." Daniel shook his head slowly. "All those years we spent wondering if we were alone, searching for signals, sending messages into the void. And they were out there the whole time, watching us and hoping we'd never figure out how to leave. Can you blame them?" Katie Morgan asked softly. She was looking at an image on her screen. It showed a human soldier from Earth's history, covered in mud and blood, charging across a battlefield with a weapon raised. Look at us through their eyes. Look at what we've done to each other. The wars, the violence, the weapons we've built. Nuclear bombs, chemical weapons, biological agents. We've created ways to kill millions in seconds. Of course, they're afraid of us. Daniel was quiet for a moment. She was right. Humanity's history was soaked in blood. They had spent thousands of years fighting each other over land and resources and beliefs. They had come close to destroying themselves more than once. If someone had watched them from the outside, they would have seen a species of unimaginable violence. But that wasn't the whole story. They also would have seen other things, Daniel said finally. They would have seen us building hospitals, creating art, writing music. They would have seen people risking their lives to save strangers. They would have seen kindness and love and sacrifice. Do you think that matters to them? Ryan asked. I think it has to. Daniel stood and faced his crew. We didn't come out here to conquer anyone. We came looking for hope. We came because our world was running out of room and we needed somewhere new to go. We came because humans have always needed to explore, to discover, to push beyond our limits. He looked at the alien station on the main screen. Those people out there are terrified of us. They think we're monsters. And maybe, based on our history, they have a right to be afraid. But that doesn't mean they're right. So what do? Nathan Cole asked from the helm. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Finally, he smiled. We show them who we really are. Not the soldiers. Not the warriors. Not the predators. We show them the humans who plant gardens and raise children and dream of better days. We show them that the same species that invented war also invented peace. And if they don't believe us? Lavra asked. Then we keep showing them, Daniel replied. For as long as it takes. We didn't survive everything Earth threw at us just to fail now. We didn't come all this way to make enemies. We came to find friends. He pressed a button on his command chair. Open a channel to the station. It's time we had a real conversation. The message from the human ship arrived in every language the Resolute's computers had been able to translate. It was short and simple. We want to talk. No weapons. No tricks. Just words. Ambassador Zeth can read the message 5 times before he believed it was real. The Deathworlders wanted to negotiate. They weren't attacking. They weren't demanding surrender. They were asking for a conversation. It's a trap, growled the Kreth warrior. They want to get inside the station. Once they're here, they'll slaughter us all. Perhaps, Zethkan replied. Or perhaps they truly mean what they say. You can't be serious. Zethkan looked around the council chamber. Fear was everywhere. It hung in the air like a fog. It clouded every mind and twisted every thought. And he understood, he truly did. These beings had grown up hearing stories about Deathworlders. Terrible stories. Nightmare stories. How could they see past that fear? But someone had to try. I will meet with them, Zethkan announced. Alone if necessary. The chamber erupted in protests. Other delegates called him mad. Guards stepped forward to stop him. But Zethkan raised his hand for silence once more. Listen to me, he said firmly. We have 2 choices. We can attack them and almost certainly die. Or we can talk to them and perhaps find another way. I choose to talk. I choose hope over fear. And if they kill you? Asked a small delegate from the back of the room. Zethkan smiled sadly. Then at least I will have tried. 1 hour later, the meeting was arranged. A neutral chamber on the station. The humans would send 3 representatives. The Confederation would send Zethkan and a small team of guards. Both sides agreed to come unarmed. Daniel Harper put on his dress uniform for the first time since leaving Earth. The fabric felt strange against his skin. He wasn't used to formal clothes. He was a soldier, a commander. He was comfortable with weapons and battles and clear enemies. This was different. This was harder. "Are you sure about this, sir?" asked Ryan Brooks. "Going in without weapons?" "Unsure," Daniel replied. "If we bring guns, they'll think we came to fight. We need them to see something else." He chose his team carefully. Katie Morgan would come for communications. A young ensign named Chris Delgado would come to represent the ordinary crew members, the families and dreamers who made up most of the ship's population. 3 humans. No weapons. Just hope the docking procedure took forever. The alien technology was strange and unfamiliar, but the Resolute's engineers figured it out eventually. When the airlock finally opened, Daniel stepped through first. The corridor beyond was tall and wide, built for species much larger than humans. Strange lights flickered overhead. The air smelled of metal and something sweet, like flowers. Everything felt wrong and right at the same time. A group of aliens waited at the far end. Daniel recognized Zefkan from the video transmissions. The ambassador was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were large and dark, like deep pools of water. Behind him stood guards in armor, their weapons clearly visible despite the agreement. Daniel didn't blame them. He would have done the same thing. "Ambassador Zefkan," he said, bowing slightly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Zefkan studied the humans with obvious caution. They were smaller than he expected, softer looking. The one called Daniel had pale skin and dark hair and tired eyes. The female, Katie, was watching everything with quick, nervous glances. The young male, Chris, looked barely old enough to be away from his family. These were the monsters? These were the Deathworlders that had terrified the galaxy for centuries? "Commander Harper," Zefkan replied carefully, "I must admit, you are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Something larger. Something with more teeth. Something that looked like it could survive a Class 12 world." Daniel laughed softly. It was a strange sound, warm and genuine. "We don't look like much, do we? Just soft skin and flat teeth and delicate little fingers." He held up his hand, showing his 5 fingers. "But looks can be deceiving, so I have heard." They walked together through the station, talking as they went. Zefkan's guards followed at a distance, never taking their eyes off the humans. Other aliens watched from doorways and windows, their faces filled with fear and curiosity. Daniel noticed them looking. He noticed how they flinched when he turned their way. He noticed how mothers pulled their children back into the shadows. And it hurt. It hurt more than he expected. "Your people are afraid of us," he said quietly. "Can you blame them?" Zefkan replied, "We have known about Earth for a very long time. We have studied your planet. We have watched your species develop. Everything we learned told us the same thing. Humans are dangerous. Humans are violent. Humans are the most successful predators in known space. That's not all we are. Perhaps not. But it is what we see first." They reached the neutral chamber, a large room with a round table in the center. Chairs of various sizes were arranged around it, designed for different species. Daniel took a seat that fit his body. Katie and Chris sat beside him. Zefkan sat across from them, his guards standing against the walls. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Katie cleared her throat softly. "May I ask you something, Ambassador?" Zefkan nodded. "What is the most dangerous thing on your home world? The scariest predator? The worst disaster?" The ambassador thought for a moment. "We have storms that can damage buildings. We have small creatures that bite and cause irritation. Once, many generations ago, A volcano erupted and killed several thousand people. It was the greatest tragedy in our history. Katie exchanged a glance with Daniel. He nodded, giving her permission to continue. On Earth, Katie said slowly, we have storms that can destroy entire cities in minutes. Hurricanes that span hundreds of miles. Tornadoes that rip houses from the ground. We have earthquakes that crack the planet open and tsunamis that swallow coastlines. We have volcanoes that blot out the sun for years. Zethkan's guard shifted nervously. The ambassador himself had gone very still. We have predators that can kill a human with a single bite, Katie continued. Sharks, lions, crocodiles, snakes with venom that stops the heart. Spiders that hide in shoes and clothes. We have diseases that have killed billions of our own kind. Plagues that spread through the air, through water, through touch. And yet you survived, Zethkan whispered. We did more than survive, Daniel said. We thrived. We became the dominant species. Not because we were the biggest or the fastest or the strongest. We're actually pretty weak compared to most Earth predators. We succeeded because we worked together. Because we loved each other. Because we refused to give up, no matter what the universe threw at us. He leaned forward, his eyes meeting Zethkan's. That's what you're looking at, Ambassador. Not monsters, survivors. People who have been fighting their own planet since the day they were born. People who know what it means to struggle, to suffer, to lose everything and start again. Zethkan was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. Then why did you come here? What do you want from us? Daniel smiled. We came because we're tired of being alone. We came because our world is crowded and we need room to grow. We came because we heard stories about the stars and wanted to see them for ourselves. He paused. We came to find friends. Friends, Zethkan repeated, as if testing the word. Friends, Daniel confirmed. We know we're scary. We know you have every reason to fear us. But give us a chance. Let us show you who we really are. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see that the same species that learned to kill also learned something more important. What's that? Daniel's smile widened. We learned to love. The days that followed were strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Ambassador Zethkan had agreed to give the humans a chance. He couldn't promise anything more than that. The council was still divided. The fear was still strong. But it was a start. Daniel Harper ordered the Resolute to power down all weapons. It was a risk, and his tactical officer hated it, but Daniel knew it was necessary. Every show of peace mattered. Every gesture of trust helped build a bridge across the gulf of fear. The first real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Lavra. Palmer had been studying the alien databases, learning about their medicine and biology. What she found shocked her. They're dying, she told Daniel in his quarters. Their entire species. The Valori, the Kreth, all of them. They have diseases they can't cure, conditions they don't understand. Their medical science is centuries behind ours. Daniel frowned. How is that possible? They have faster-than-light travel. They've built space stations. How can their medicine be so primitive? Because they never needed it, Lavra explained. Their worlds are gentle. Their bodies evolved in stable environments. They never faced the constant threat of disease and injury that humans did. We developed medicine because we had to. Every plague that swept through our population, every injury that could kill us, pushed us to find new treatments. We turned our suffering into knowledge. Can we help them? Laura's eyes lit up. That's what I wanted to ask you. I've been talking with their medical staff. They're curious about our treatments. They're afraid, of course, but also desperate. If we shared our knowledge, we could save millions of lives. Daniel didn't hesitate. Do it. Share everything we have. The first patient was a young Valori child named Kel. He had a condition that their doctors called the wasting sickness. His body was slowly shutting down, one organ at a time. The Valori had no cure. They had been watching their children die from this disease for generations. Lara studied his condition carefully. She ran tests. She compared his biology to human biology. And then she smiled. "It's an infection," she said. "A simple bacterial infection that his immune system can't fight. We have antibiotics that should work." The Valori doctors were skeptical. They had never heard of antibiotics. The idea that tiny organisms could cause disease was foreign to them. But they were desperate enough to try anything. Lara administered the treatment herself. She stayed by Kel's bedside for 3 days, monitoring his condition, adjusting the dosage, hoping with every fiber of her being that it would work. On the 4th day, Kel opened his eyes and asked for food. The news spread across the station within hours. The Death Worlders had saved a child. They had cured a disease that had plagued the Valori for centuries. They had done it for free, asking nothing in return. Ambassador Zethkin came to the medical bay to see for himself. Kel was sitting up in bed, weak but alive, eating a bowl of nutrient paste while his parents wept with joy. "How?" Zethkin asked Lara. "How did you know what to do?" "Earth taught us," Lara replied simply. "Every disease that tried to kill us, we learned to fight. Every weakness in our bodies, we found a way to fix. We've been practicing medicine for thousands of years, and we've gotten very good at it." Zethkin looked at the human doctor with new eyes. She was not a monster. She was a healer, a saver of lives, a being who used her knowledge to help others, not hurt them. "Perhaps we have misjudged your kind," he said quietly. Meanwhile, other crew members from the Resolute were making connections of their own. A young engineer named Sam Rivera had been helping repair damage to the station's power systems. He worked alongside alien technicians, learning their methods and sharing his own. At first, they were afraid of him. They flinched when he moved too quickly. They jumped when he raised his voice. But Sam was patient. He worked slowly and carefully. He explained everything he did. He made jokes that didn't translate, but made them laugh anyway. And slowly, very slowly, they began to trust him. "You're not what we expected," said a Kreth technician named Brock. "The stories say Deathworlders are brutal and cruel. But you helped fix my console without asking for payment. You shared your food with us when our rations ran low. You are kind." Sam shrugged. "We're not saints. We've done terrible things to each other back on Earth. Wars, crimes, cruelty beyond imagination. But we've also done good things. We've built schools and hospitals. We've created art and music. We've loved and been loved. Humans are complicated. We contain both darkness and light. Which one is the real you?" Sam thought about it for a moment. "Both," he said finally. "But I like to think the light is winning." Back in the council chamber, the debates continued. Some delegates still wanted the humans gone. They argued that no amount of kindness could erase the threat. Deathworlders were dangerous by nature. Sooner or later, they would show their true colors. But others were starting to change their minds. They had seen the humans heal the sick. They had watched them work and laugh and share. They had heard stories of humans risking their lives to save aliens they had just met. Zethkin addressed the council once more. "I have spent the last week with these beings," he said. "I have watched them closely. I have looked for signs of deception or cruelty or hidden agendas. And do you know what I found?" The chamber was silent. "I found people," Zethkan continued. "Strange people, yes. Frightening people, in some ways. But people nonetheless. They have families they miss. They have dreams they hope to fulfill. They have fears and doubts and weaknesses, just like us. They are not monsters. They are survivors. And perhaps that is exactly what this galaxy needs. What do you mean? Asked a delegate. The universe is vast and dangerous, Zefkan replied. There are threats out there that we cannot face alone. Supernovas, asteroids, hostile species that make the humans look tame. We have survived because we are cautious, because we avoid conflict, because we hide from anything that might harm us. But hiding can only protect us for so long. He gestured toward the window, toward the stars beyond. The humans survived by fighting, by adapting, by refusing to give up. Maybe we need some of that strength. Maybe we need allies who know how to face danger head-on. Maybe we need Deathworlders. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some agreed with Zefkan. Others called him a traitor. The debate raged for hours. In the end, they reached a compromise. The humans would be allowed to stay at the station for 1 month. During that time, they would prove their intentions through their actions. If they showed any signs of aggression, any hint of danger, they would be expelled immediately. But if they continued to show kindness and cooperation, the council would consider opening formal diplomatic relations. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Daniel Harper received the news with a tired smile. 1 month, he said. 30 days to change 800 years of fear. Think we can do it? Katie asked. Daniel looked out the viewport at the station, at the alien ships that were slowly starting to return, at the strange new universe that had opened before them. I think we have to try, he said. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's trying. The month passed faster than anyone expected. Day by day, the fear that had gripped the station began to fade. It didn't disappear completely. Some aliens still crossed to the other side of the corridor when humans walked by. Some merchants still refused to trade with them. But the majority of the station's residents were starting to see the truth. The Deathworlders were not what they seemed. Commander Daniel Harper had kept his crew busy. They repaired broken systems. They shared their knowledge freely. They helped anyone who asked for assistance. And perhaps most importantly, they showed the galaxy something it had never seen before. Humans at their best. A fire broke out in one of the station's lower levels. The alien firefighting teams were overwhelmed. The flames were spreading too fast, threatening to consume an entire residential section. Hundreds of families were trapped. Without hesitation, Daniel led a team of humans into the inferno. They wore no special protection. They carried no advanced equipment. They simply ran into the flames because that's what humans did. They faced danger to save others. The aliens who watched from safety could not believe what they saw. The humans moved through the fire as if it were nothing. They kicked down doors and carried screaming children to safety. They breathed in smoke that would have killed most species and kept going. They pushed through pain and injury and exhaustion until every single person was rescued. 12 humans were injured. 3 were badly burned. 1 almost died. When it was over, Daniel collapsed against a wall, his uniform charred and his face black with soot. Ambassador Zefkan found him there, surrounded by grateful families who couldn't stop touching him, couldn't stop thanking him. Why? Zefkan asked. Why did you risk your lives for strangers? Daniel coughed and smiled weakly. Because they needed help. Because we could help. That's enough reason. You could have died. Yes, and you went in anyway. Yes. Zefkan was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone watching. He reached down and took Daniel's burned hand in his own. I think, he said slowly, I am beginning to understand your species. The news of the rescue spread across the galaxy. Images of humans charging into flames, carrying alien children in their arms, sacrificing themselves for people they had just met. It was shared billions of times. It was discussed in every council chamber and every home. And slowly, very slowly, the story of humanity began to change. They were no longer just Deathworlders. They were protectors. They were heroes. They were the strange, impossible beings who ran toward danger instead of away from it. Not everyone was convinced, of course. Fear doesn't die easily. But more and more species began to reach out, curious about these humans who seemed to embody both terror and compassion in equal measure. The month ended. The council met one final time to decide the fate of the human visitors. This time, the debate was different. Delegates who had demanded the humans be expelled now spoke in their favor. Leaders who had called them monsters now called them allies. Even the Kreth warrior who had been most afraid stood and admitted that he had been wrong. I watched a human female carry 3 of my people's children out of a burning building, he said. She could barely stand. Her skin was blistered and her lungs were full of smoke. But she went back in any way because there were still people inside. I have never seen such courage. Zethkin rose to speak last. The chamber fell silent. 800 years ago, he began, we discovered a world called Earth. We watched its people fight and kill and struggle. We saw their violence and decided they were too dangerous to contact. We built walls around them and hoped they would never escape. We were afraid. He paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. We were right to be afraid. Humans are dangerous. They are stronger than us, faster than us, more resilient than us. They can survive conditions that would kill any of us. They are, in every measurable way, the most formidable species we have ever encountered. Some delegates shifted nervously in their seats. But we were also wrong, Zethkin continued. We thought their danger meant they would destroy us. We thought their strength made them our enemies. We didn't understand that the same world that taught them to fight also taught them to protect. The same survival instincts that made them warriors also made them guardians. He raised his hand toward the viewport, toward the Resolute still floating in the distance. These humans crossed the stars looking for friends. They found fear and suspicion and distrust. And what did they do? They helped us anyway. They healed our sick. They repaired our machines. They ran into fire to save our children. They showed us what they are truly capable of. Not destruction, but devotion. Not conquest, but compassion. Zethkan's voice grew stronger. I move that we welcome humanity into the Galactic Confederation. Not as guests. Not as visitors. As full members with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Let this day mark the end of our fear and the beginning of a new friendship. The vote was called. One by one, the delegates made their choice. When it was done, the result was clear. Humanity was welcomed. Daniel Harper received the news on the bridge of the Resolute. His crew cheered and hugged each other. Some wept with joy. They had done it. Against all odds, they had turned fear into hope. That evening, a celebration was held on the station. Humans and aliens mingled freely for the first time. Music played from speakers, both Earth songs and alien melodies blending together. Food was shared, even when it looked strange or smelled unusual. Laughter echoed through the corridors. Daniel found Zethkan standing by a window, looking out at the stars. Thank you, Daniel said, for giving us a chance. Zethkin shook his head. You gave yourselves a chance. All I did was watch. You did more than that. You believed in us when no one else would. Perhaps. Zethkin was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something, Commander? Of course. Your species has so much potential for violence. So much capacity for destruction. How do you control it? How do you stop yourselves from becoming the monsters everyone feared? Daniel thought about the question carefully. He thought about human history with all its wars and atrocities. He thought about the darkness that had almost consumed them more than once. And he thought about what had always pulled them back from the edge. Love, he said finally. We love each other. We love our families, our friends, our communities. We love ideas and dreams and hopes for the future. And that love is stronger than any weapon. It reminds us why we're fighting. It keeps us human, even in our darkest moments. Zeph Khan considered this. That seemed like a fragile thing to depend on. Daniel smiled. Maybe, but it's gotten us this far. They stood together in comfortable silence. Two beings from different worlds looking out at the same stars. Behind them, the party continued. Humans and aliens were learning to dance together, laughing at their mistakes, celebrating their differences. Your people mentioned that Earth is running out of room, Zeph Khan said eventually. That you need new places to live. Yes, there are many worlds in the Confederation. Worlds that were once colonized and then abandoned. Worlds that are too dangerous for most species. Zeph Khan's eyes twinkled slightly. Perhaps not too dangerous for humans. Daniel laughed. Are you offering us death worlds? I am offering you homes. If you want them. Daniel looked back at his ship, at the crew who had followed him across the stars on faith alone. They had come looking for a future. And now, against all odds, they had found one. We want them, he said. We definitely want them. Zeph Khan nodded slowly. Then welcome to the galaxy, Commander Harper. I have a feeling things are about to get very interesting. Daniel grinned. Ambassador, you have no idea. And somewhere, across the vast darkness of space, the message was spreading. The Deathworlders had come, and they were not monsters after all. They were something far more remarkable. They were humans. And the galaxy would never be the same.